All right. Welcome to the Nathaniel Podcast. Today we have a returning guest, Luke Deighton. Welcome, Luke.
Yeah, good to be back, brother. Thanks for having me back again. I think I was number one, wasn't I? So it's nice to,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So it's nice to come full circle and come back around and go a little bit deeper and talk about whatever we're going to talk about. So
Yeah, because like last time we did a little bit of introduction and we did try to supplement that like a couple of weeks ago,
yeah,
but there were there were internet issues and we weren't able to record.
it's been. I think this is like the third or fourth time we tried. I think we even did like another one where it was like we did a full
Yeah.
podcast and it just didn't upload. So and this
Yeah,
one,
there was an issue with the internet.
I'll make sure that I leave Riverside up this time so it uploads. So I'd say I probably exited it out a little bit too quick, but no, it's good to be back, man. I'm looking forward to continuing off from where we sort of left off the conversation last time, and yeah, see where the conversation flows.
Yeah, man. So just to introduction for everyone, Luke is a business coach. Would that what you would label yourself to be?
Yeah, that's yeah, business coach, entrepreneur. I've got lots going on, so which we can talk about.
Yeah. So just your bio, you help purpose-driven leaders grow sustainable, value-driven businesses, blending ancient wisdom with modern strategy, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So your banner as well is raise your impact. Can you like elaborate on that? What do you mean raise your impact? What are you
Yeah,
trying to like
so really,
communicate there?
when we're talking about holistic success, so just taking our impact to the highest level possible, aligning our mind, our body, our spirit. So really bringing the big business structures that work from a corporate sense, that are there for a reason, and aligning that sort of helping people remember the wisdom of the past, all of the energetics, the really fun stuff that I like to talk about in regards to the quantum, the connection to nature, and all of the different tools and processes that we can use in that space to create this beautiful synergy within our big visions, what we want to create, have that impact on the world that we want to have, and just be the best version of ourselves, So,
Right. And yeah, so just a background as well. Before you were actually working in the mines, so we talked a little bit about that. So if you want to talk,
yeah, so I did 9.5, nearly 10 years in the mining industry. Came out of uni, like went to uni 6 months in. I was like, this is not for me, man. I was like,
yeah,
halfway through, I was like, nah. And I was there for the wrong reasons. I was there for others. I picked a subject that was easy to do while I was playing high level sports. I've got a
right,
basketballing background, so
yeah,
it was easy to get the score that I needed to. I didn't have to do much work to get into that, and I thought architects made a lot of money, and that was my justification for going and trying to become an architect. So easy to see how when there's party and when you're young, there's lots of distraction in uni. Easy to see why I didn't sort of have the motivation to see that through. So yeah, 6 months later, like left that, got a job on a mine site, and was lucky enough to get offered a traineeship there. Flew through my traineeship and really just had started to like find purpose, find like that drive when it came to career. Was still very disconnected emotionally, but from a career point of view, was really like starting to kick goals, and all of my traits in regards to leadership and high level sports and discipline and all that started to come through. And so, really, in an environment like that, worked my way up really quickly. And so, 12 months into my 2 year traineeship, I was finished. 6 months later, I was 2IC in, and pretty much 2 years. 2 years into my time there, I was like one of the youngest supervisors that I ever had. So, yeah, really moved up quickly. Lots of circumstances, lots of great opportunities that I was able to take, and then from there, like all of the leadership pathways, those kind of things, and at the same time was also president of our local basketball club. So, was really getting a great insight from a young age in managing people, building teams, scaling things, and that's really held me in great stead with what I'm doing now. Uh, but yeah, 9.5 years in those spaces, life member of the basketball club now. So we just celebrated our 60th anniversary, which is really cool.
congratulations, man.
Yeah, so that was really cool. On the weekend, my throat's cooked. I've been talking all day, and then yeah, it's really cool to be a part of that and to be a life member of that space. And with in the same category, there's so many people who I looked up to and had such a massive influence on my life. To be in the same category as them is something I'm really, really grateful for. And again, another great catalyst for the work that we're doing now in the non-for-profit space and all of those kind of things. So it's interesting when you're going through it and you're wondering why. You're like, why am I doing this? What's this leading to? You look back and you go, I see why. I see why I had to work through those resistances. The same, parents' divorce is another one of those. I really had to step up and lead in that space and really hold the family together, and was able to really just focus on the task at hand. And that's been really important for what I do now with my clients, and really staying grounded and calm in the chaos that comes up when you're creating big things. And I guess that's one of the things that draws people to me, is that grounded energy of being able to hold them in that vision and allow them to go in the chaos, allow them to flow in that space, and just re-anchor them back into that vision time and time again until we can create it.
Right. And we talked a little bit about this in our first podcast. So anyone who wants to learn more about his Luke's story, you can check that out. But now I do want to go deeper into that journey of yours, where you went from basically, corporate, that very structured system, to now you integrate a lot of spirituality and, spirituality aspects in business. So I do want to ask you, how did that transition for you? What changed so that you went deep into spirituality?
Yeah, cool. Great question. I probably always lived one foot in both worlds. From a young age, my sister and I were very connected in regards to I talk to ghosts and all of these kind of things. And then as you get into the sporting environment, that's sort of not the conversation.
Disappeared. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I quickly developed the suppression in that space. But my sister was studying to become a doctor, and 3 years into her placement, she'd done her general degree, and sort of said, well, I want to help people, but not in this way. So she went down a very spiritual, somatic journey in that space, intuitive development, creative development, and then approached me about helping her build a online intuitive development school called the Genius Portal, which is now in its 8th year. And so I started doing all the marketing in that space and just getting reintroduced to that side of myself in regards to the creativity, the development, the intuition, and still probably rejected it for a long time. In regards to, yeah, cool, it's cool, but it's not for me. I'm very much structured. I want to be pragmatic, etc., etc., etc. And so then sort of probably 6 years ago, I really started to notice that there was some discrepancies with where I was going from a career point of view and what I would truly love to create. I was starting to move up the line in regards to leadership and development in the mining space, and getting sort of told, hey, look, these are the people you need to emulate. If you want to get ahead, these are the people you need to follow. You need to speak how they speak. You need to act how they act. And I would look at them and just, there was no life in their eyes. They didn't believe what they were saying. And the only time that they were excited was when they were talking about stuff outside of work. And so that was probably the first little trigger of maybe there's something else here. Maybe there's something else. And obviously the Genius Portal then became this exit plan of okay, cool, I'm going to step in there full time at some point and really dive into that space. And then I started to get asked around coaching and leadership and mentoring and all those kind of things. And I was like, cool, this is where I'm passionate about. And now I can see why I've had to go through this journey in the mines to be able to relate to so many different people and so many different ages and people of different backgrounds and those kind of things, and build large teams and understand these processes. And so then COVID hit and our son was born, Elijah, who's 3.5 now. And that was such a catalyst for change. It was this big shift in regards to what kind of a world are we creating? Are we going to sit idly by and let others create it, or are we going to go out create it in a vision of what we would love to create? And so we went all in on what we wanted to create. And I really started to dive into the systems, the processes, the nature. I really started the journey with myself in regards to plant medicines and cacao. And cacao has been such a great catalyst in my life for that, of really melting down the walls that I had around my heart to be able to really dive back into myself and utilize that as a powerful tool So much so that my sister and I ended up buying Vibrational Organics, which is one of the brands we own. It had such an effect on my life that we decided to buy that. And so through all of that, I've just been developing systems, tools that I've learned, recognizing where I've learned them along my journey, not even outside in this full-time space, but through the minds, through my interactions with other people. What were the skills that I have? What were the tools that I used in those spaces? What lessons have I learned? And how can I now align them from an energetical point of view? And that's allowed me to cultivate some really cool frameworks and tools that I'll be using with the clients now. And that's just been such a beautiful alignment in regards to just realizing that it's not just about the physical side of things. You've got to have the balance in regards to the spirit or like your purpose. So for me, like spirit doesn't always just mean like spirituality. It's sort of more like, what's your purpose? What are you here to do? What's your truth? That's spirit for me. And then you have your mind and then your body. And so that's bringing all of those together to really create that holistic success for me is so, so important. And one of the most important elements of that for me is like aligning the output of your energy in the vision of the energy that you want to receive in return. And we learn that lesson from nature, ecosystem, cultivating ecosystems. And that's talk about this in my programs, but like, nature's been here so much longer than us. And we had to learn all of these tools, all of these processes, all these systems from somewhere. And nature, if you look at nature, you can see every process, every tool, every modality in our modern world is just a reflection of a process or a tool or a system that's already present in nature. And so when we can learn that, when we can see that, then we can learn how to apply it in our own lives. And when we do that, we become more connected with nature. And I think that's actually where we're supposed to be, which is why, we respond so well to walking in the bush, to grounding on the grass, to being out in nature, which we were speaking about a little bit before with your recent holiday. And for me, that's because we are of nature. And we're always trying to get back to that space.
Right. This reminds me of like a Bible verse. It's like, yeah, because like I forgot what book it is. Crap. But nothing is new under the sun. Basically, yeah. That's what he said. I can't say. Forgot the book, but basically it says like, your phone, you call someone, it's just a fancier talking. It's like you're still operating in terms of nature. It's just a fancier version of what is natural.
Absolutely, man. And I think there's some great things with modern advancements from a technological point of view, and there's some also things that do separate us a little bit from that nature. And for me, it's all around creating that balance, finding what works for you. Where do you feel most in flow? Where do you find that most alignment? What are the things that really light you up? Because at the end of the day, if we have a vision, life's very, very simple, in my opinion. Like, have a vision, have tools to be able to notice when you're in your resistance in regards to that vision, constantly check in with it and just take steps towards it. If you do that consistently over time, like, you're going to have success. It's just that we like to overcomplicate things as humans and have with our neocortex and wanting to have all the status and ego that comes with complicated systems. You look at all like writing, journaling, marketing, sales, you strip away all of the fancy gizmos and shit that we put on top of it to sell it. They're very, very similar at their core, right? They're all very, very similar. They all can be nuddled back down to like 3 or 4 core principles within that framework that if you hit, you'll have success with. It's just that we like to overcomplicate it a little bit because it sort of makes more money in our opinion, so yeah, man.
When you make it fancier, then you can sell it for more.
And you have to these days. Like, you think about dopamine and the way in which the world's running for short, sharp grabs. If it's not fancy, if you just say it's really simple, just do these 3 things, people go, oh, that can't work. That doesn't have bells and whistles. That's stupid. Like, not this expensive reel that's been cultivated for the last 6 months. It can't work. Surely not. So, and that's just the world we live in at the moment. Unfortunately, we've been dumbed down as a species, really. And there's plenty of reasons as to why that is, but it's one of the like when it comes to marketing with my clients, I sort of talk into, you got to treat everyone as either 10 IQ points lower than what you want or what you think, a 12-year-old or an alien, and write your content as if you're speaking to those people. Because no one has fucking any idea what you're talking about most of the time. And so you've got to
Right, yeah.
imagine that you're on Mars and you've been sent from Earth and you have to sell your stuff to these people that can't speak English. They can't understand what you're saying. They've never heard of what you're talking about. And they don't even know if they want it. If you can sell it to them, then you can sell it.
Then you can sell it to anyone.
It always gets a bit of an eyebrow raise, but that's a valid point.
Makes sense, man. I mean, like, simple, clear, then clever, right? So you talk a lot about vision. Kind of run me through that really quickly then, because I believe that that's one of the critical parts of your program and, like how you build a business as a whole is vision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have a reorientating space, right? So if we think about, and this is why it's, especially in the conscious entrepreneur space, we see so many people who just put their hands up in the air and expect the universe to take them for a ride. Think if they set their intention, if they put it out into the positive energy out into the universe is going to grab it and create it for them. It's not how the universe works. The universe likes action. The universe likes people taking charge and moving. And so vision becomes so key in that. And it's like you say, it's the first module of the program is all around laying the foundations, introducing some topics across creative development, the quantum, masculine and feminine energies, those kind of things. But it ends in cultivating a vision. And I do this in two ways. Firstly, what we think we want to create. So like writing down everything that we want to think and what the mind wants. And then guided meditation to really dive through a process what I call the river of plenty and really tap into the themes of what's true for you to create. Because when we do that without the mind, so like through the guided meditation, really tapping us into the heart space, which for me is where our soul would lie, we generally create two different visions, one of what we think and what we would love. And that gives us a great insight, not only to, well, why are there differences, but it also gives us an insight into the ways in which we are sabotaging ourselves or our shadows. And they're really important to understand, right? So that we don't want to reject them because they're a part of us, and we don't want to reject a part of us because that's going to create a heap of other energetical traumas. But we want to understand them, because if we can understand them, we can see where they're going to come up. We can learn how and the ways in which they're going to apply in our lives and how they might be slowing us down, or what the normal behaviors or feelings are like. And that way we can adjust and we can just anchor back in alignment with the vision. And that's why the vision is so important. You think about, so when we're in, I should draw it up on the board to be easier, but when we're wired for,
Do it, dude. Draw it. Go ahead, man. If you want it.
I'll have it here. Hold on. I would have done it.
We're getting a free masterclass in the podcast.
Can you see that? It's split screen, so just make sure. So this is a diagram of what we call like the liminal space or communitas. And communitas is this phrase of like, when we let go of the first person, when we let go of our identity, we go into the space where we become a part of the community, we become a part of the greater whole. And for me, that's the space in which we can actually like really start to dive into ourselves and grow. For me, this is our rite of passage that we constantly go through in every single day. And we're wired for rite of passage. Our cells are doing it every single moment of every single day, constantly renewing death, rebirth. Our thoughts are constantly doing it, like every single second. You're getting more information, getting access to more information. You're creating new stories, beliefs, values, identities, the pillars of our psychology. And we do it from a formative point of view, from an energetical, that the main rites of passage are, your boy to teen to man to elder. But we do this in regards to ourselves as well. And this process here is how I sort of explain that in regards to the vision. So here's where you might be sort of the now in the now. And that's your social identity. That's your beliefs, your values, who you believe you are, your identity, right? And when we breathe, we allow ourselves to connect with a different part of ourselves. When we allow ourselves to be safe, when we allow ourselves to be comfortable, we take ourselves into this space of communitas or the liminal. And the best example of when it comes to communitas is in natural disasters, no one gives a fuck about anyone's status, right? Everyone just chips in and to help. It's all about community. No one gives a crap about status. But we're so wired to be in status. It's like one of the first things you generally say to people in particular Western culture is, oh, what do you do for a living? The reason we say that and the reason we ask that question is to put ourselves in a social order. It's, am I above or below this person? Right. And so we have this identity around our social status. And for me, one of the key things with vision, which we'll get to in a second, is it allows us to reorientate back into the truth and remove ourselves from that first person or that identity piece that we cling to from a place of survival. And so when we go into this communitas space, for me, I call that the observer effect or the observer space. What we're doing is we're putting ourselves in the third person so that we can just observe without the attachment or the emotional attachment to our identity. If you think about journaling and writing, it's a great example of this as a tool. It's a powerful tool for obviously what we do, but it's a powerful tool for healing and for transformation, because what we're doing is we're transmuting that from ourselves. We put it into the third person on a piece of paper and we can reflect back on it in the third person. It allows us to disassociate from that first person attachment to those feelings, to those emotions. That's what we do when we're meditating, when we're doing breath work, when we're talking about spirit animals and consciousness and all of those things. For me, they're just different parts of us that our consciousness uses to put ourselves in the third person to allow that rite of passage. If you think about a traditional rite of passage, you get removed from your community, and allowed to be guided through a transformation by elders. But we obviously don't have the elders in our day-to-day life. So our brain, for me, our consciousness has developed this incredible technique to allow us to drop ourselves into that third person space to receive that information. And you'll be familiar with this if you've ever gone to someone like a mentor or a friend and gone, oh, I want your opinion on this. And so they'll say it and you'll go, I knew that was what I was going with. You just need that third person validation. We're wired for validation, right? We're wired for that external thumbs up from someone else. And that's from a young age. It's just part of our culture, but we can understand that and we can utilize it to our advantage. Like in this system, like we go from the now, we go from the present, we breathe, and that allows us to tell our parasympathetic and our nervous system that we're safe and we're allowed to drop our identity and we let go of that identity. We go into this observer effect and we just observe what's present about the situation. We just observe what's obvious. If you're making a decision about something, you're just observing the information in that space. You're not coming at it from as Nat, you're coming at it from this third person, right? And when we do that, we see things in a different way. And it's a very crucial psychological thing to understand in regards to even when you're talking about it yourself in the third person allows you to disassociate from the energy. And so when we do that, if we don't have a place to reorientate back in to our reality or to our identity, we'll generally subconsciously sabotage ourselves. And we'll just float in this space of communitas. And they sort of refer to this as like an unintegrated shaman sort of thing. You're constantly just in this like spiritual space. You never come back into reality. You never come back and integrate it and action it. And for me, that's where the vision comes back in so important, because when we're in that observer space, if we have a vision, in any situation, we can just look at that and observe it for what it is, that information, and go, am I in alignment with my vision or am I not? Yes or no. And that's as simple as it has to be. Okay, now when I come back into my vision, do I make a choice to take the step or the action that's in alignment with my vision? Or do I take the step or action that's out of alignment with my vision? And we always have that choice. But this framework and this understanding allows us to do that. And that's why vision for me is so, so important, because in any situation, in any moment of any day, if something challenging comes up, I can use this. And I have a framework that I use with this called BOD. So breathe, put yourself into the observer, observe in the third, the O, and then decide. reorientate back into your vision and decide. And you can use that in any situation in your life, and it's a great little acronym to remember. So if I get met with resistance, or if I get met with a challenge, I can just stop and breathe, which allows me to get out of that fight or flight response. And then just observe the information for what it is. What am I seeing? What's the challenge? What am I fearing fear about? If it's a choice that I have to make, where's my fear? Where am I trying to sabotage myself? Am I playing small? Am I just basing this off an opinion because I heard someone else say something?
Yes.
What's my vision for this
Right.
situation, for this next step? Okay, well, in my vision, I'm actually very, very confident. I make choices. I'm very, very integrated. Okay, well, how would that person act? Well, they would do this. Cool. There's your decision. There's your action step. Now go and do it. Now, we don't always do it. It takes time and it takes constant. We're never perfect, and we never will be, and we're never going to be at 100%. There'll be days where we're getting our shit. There'll be days where you'll do this process and we'll still choose to step out of alignment, or we'll forget the process and we'll just react and respond. What's important is then that we check in with that vision, that we have
Right.
stop checks, word am I trying?
Checkpoint.
Checkpoints, yeah, checkpoints in. Been a long day. Checkpoints in place, like every 3 months, of like, okay, I'm going to reorientate back in my vision. What does that look like? And for me and my clients, we do this daily. It's like, what's your vision? Like, check in with your vision. What's your top 3 for the day in alignment with your vision? Did you get that done? Did you get it not done? Okay, why didn't you get it done? What was that reflection? Constant check in with the vision, reflect, learn, mine the gold. Because if we don't, we just, as humans, we're great at sabotaging ourselves. We're great at dropping stuff down. We're great at like just keeping it and just like suppressing it. And if we do that, then 1 week becomes a month, 2 months. And every time we take a step out of alignment in our vision, it moves everything.
The harder it is.
Yeah,
the harder it is to go back as well.
Exactly. Yeah. If you think about having like 5 pillars of, say, your 5 pillars of holistic success might be like mindset, body, spirit, health, and community, right? Just as 5 off the top of my head. If I take a step out of alignment in my community space, that shifts the baseline of all the other pillars. So I'm not just affecting the community piece, I'm affecting everything within that ecosystem of what I'm trying to create. And so for me, especially when we start out on the professional or personal development space, our negatives tend to compound more because it's so much harder to break so much harder to break a positive habit than a negative habit, right? It's so much easier to put in a negative habit than create a positive habit. And so, especially at the start, it's just so important to have that accountability, that community, that support to take the steps you need to move through. Appreciate you letting me get the whiteboard out.
No, I enjoyed it, man. I learned a lot. Like, especially what you said, I feel like I have the ability to take the first steps where you said, like, breathe and see the situation as it is. But I tend to forget, like, the last part was like, you ground it to your vision. And like, it totally makes sense because, I mean, the vision is what drives me forward. Like, it's what I want. But then I forget about it because of like what you said. Someone probably said something and I just listened. Like, I was scrolling through YouTube and then someone told me you should be earning like this much or you should be driving a Lamborghini by now. And now like I'm thinking I should be doing that instead of like what I actually want.
Instead of like it's saying, I should have a disclaimer down the bottom is that this kid has just like lent out this Lamborghini for 30 minutes to take this photo to them. I'll tell you this video and he had to take it back, There should be those disclaimers. But
Yeah.
I think it's just important, again, like run your own race. Like, you've got your vision, and if you take steps towards that, you're 95% ahead of most of the people who, if you have support and systems and structures, and I think that's the big understanding and the biggest thing that I've learned is that anyone that sells you that you can be 100% is selling you bullshit. We're not 100% all the time. Anyone that's doing that, selling you snake oil, we all get in our resistance, we all get in our shit. What separates those who reach their vision and have success is that they have better systems, tools, and support to get themselves out of the shit. So they spend longer in their flow than they do out of it. And that's why it looks like people create with ease, and they just have better support, they have better systems. And that compounds over time. And then all of a sudden they get to do whatever they want every single second of every day. But, work-life balance is earned. It's not just given. So many people think that they're just going to set the intention to have work-life balance, and it'll be great for a year. You won't make it past 3 years in your business, because when the downturns come, and they always do, you've got to be able to ride it through with support and systems and structures. And if you don't have those things, then you're basically just fucking throwing cards at the wall and hoping they stick, So, and that's the same as not having a vision. You don't have goals, you don't have visions, you're just playing with fire. It's not going to work out long term. Been there, tried that. Know many people who have been there and tried that, and it just doesn't work. So.
Yeah. So that's the vision. And now, like, you have a lot of ways to, like, move towards that vision. You talk about creative development, mindset, energetics, masculinity and femininity. Like, walk me through this, anything that you would like to talk about, like you're really passionate about.
Man, we could go in so many ways here. I love everything that I do, in this space in particular. And I think, if people take anything away from this podcast, vision first and foremost, but also energy. So when we talk, I'm sure people have heard the sayings, focus creates your reality. Where your focus goes, your energy flows, all of those sayings, right? They're not just spiritual woo-woo. They're very much the fabric of the universe, like how our universe is actually designed and made, right? I'm not going to go into the details here, but if you want to look up double slit theory and all of those kind of things, go for it. Or come and do the course if you want to learn about it. It's very much fabric of the universe stuff. But if we think about why those visions and all of those goals, we talk about tension, right? And the difference between stress and tension. And so many people sit in stress, fear or resistance, or fear of fight or flight response, and we constantly live in this stressed space, right? And that's, again, why the vision is so fucking important, because the difference between stress and tension is just that stress is a fear response to not knowing where you're going, not having a clear outcome. The mind goes into the survival mode and goes, I don't know where I'm going, so I'm not going to go there, because my number one role is survival. And if I don't know that I can survive by being there, then, well, we're not going to go there. And it'll do everything it can to stop you from taking that step. And so it'll put you into stress, which means you don't make as good decisions, fear, all of those things. Tension is just the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. And it's a motivating force. And that's the difference between understanding stress and tension and creative development in particular. Because you want to put yourself in tension, for every expansion, there's an equal opposite level of resistance. And we see it all the time. People post about it all the time on Twitter around resistance. Step into the resistance. That's where your growth lies. And it's not just a saying, it's like the very fabric of how we grow. But when it comes to like the word intention, like you have your intention, you set your intention, you put your energy in motion. So you put yourself towards a goal, you set that intention, whether it's just an intention for having a nice cup of tea and journaling, whether it's an intention for an in-depth cacao ceremony, you're setting an intention. But what you're really doing is, if you think about the etymology of that word, you're putting yourself in tension. Yeah. And that tension is the motivating factor to energize yourselves and energize your body to go to that place of like, this is where we're going, step in, step through. And so we dive into that in module 1 and define that. We talk about ladders of expansion and resistance, and how, if we don't, all of the lessons and the hurdles and the challenges that we face are just lessons that we need to learn to get to that vision, right? To understand our true purpose, to step into that greatness or our light or our power or whatever you want to call it. And so we have an obligation to step into that. And if we don't step into that, then we sort of spiritual bypass in a way. We'll create like a nice life, a good life, but we'll never create the life. There's only one the life. You can create great variations of it, and I would have created a good variation of it if I had stayed in the mining industry, right? Big money, nothing to worry about, nothing to want for, would have done all the things I needed to do, but I wouldn't have created the life that we're creating now. It just wouldn't have been possible. And so understanding that, we dive into the masculine and feminine a little bit and just explore some of those energies. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer that energy, we're all energy. We're all cut from the same cloth. We're all very much energetic beings. And energy is just, Einstein said, like, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only shift and can only change, right? And so there's some really cool research coming out at the moment, actually, in regards to, like, they used to think that, like, the universe was made up of millions of the same electron, like, just resonating at different frequencies. Now what they're trying to disprove is that it's just one electron resonating at different frequencies, materializing in different ways, so that we're all, like, what they're basically saying is that we're all cut from the same cloth, essentially, which is wild to think about. But I think it's really important to understand, or just have a concept of, in regards to energetics and the way energy works and how our focus does, getting back to that focus creates our reality, why that's so important. And for a lot of people, energetically, let's just hold the premise that there's three main pathways that our energy can flow: into the past, into the present, and the future. And I think that one of the greatest things that people can learn how to do is to reclaim as much energy from the past, so like our traumas, our beliefs, or the stories that we tell ourselves, or the moments in our life, to energetically complete on those, to be able to reclaim that energy to put into the present and the future. Because what we learn in creative development is that 95% of the time, the subconscious is steering the show. Even right now, you and I are having a conscious conversation, and we're here, we've got conscious energy into this moment, but our brain will be, and our subconscious will be creating stories, judgments, thoughts, all of those things in the background, right? And from an energetic point of view, I'm a big believer that our energy will go to the things that hold the most power over us. And generally, they will be your traumas, your beliefs, your identifying moments, the key moments in your childhood that made you who you are. And so when we think about that term, our focus creates our reality. So if our subconscious focus is going back to those traumatic, negative beliefs, stories, what are we going to do? We're going to recreate more of that in our life. We're going to create that reality. We're going to create where our focus is. And so for me, energetic completion and tidying up those blocks, doing the inner child work, doing the trauma work, diving into the father wounds and the mother wounds and all of those kind of things is so important, so that we can reclaim that energy and make sure that we have the maximum amount of creative capacity to put our energy into the present and the future. Understanding, again, like leaning on the lessons from nature in regards to ecosystem and aligning your energy, creating ecosystems and cultivating that. If we put our energy in the right spaces, we'll receive energy back in the right spaces. And this is one of the key things to understand from a not burning out point of view, is that we have to have that vision, and we have to align the output of our energy in that vision.
In the vision. Goes back to the vision.
Exactly, man. Everything ties back into the vision, and to be able to receive the energy that we want to receive. And that's how we stop burnout, because we're actually receiving the right energy back. And so if you think about ecosystem, and we'll lean on a lesson from nature here and look at a tree, right? So what's a tree do? A tree takes nutrient and stuff from the ground, but it also takes pollutants back from the air and provides oxygen. It also provides shade, it provides mulch for the ground, and so many other microorganisms. If we allow its natural cycle to go, it's constantly giving back more than it receives. And so that's ever present in nature. And so when that tree ends its time and it's allowed to do its natural cycle, it falls down and it feeds like 15 trees around it. So again, it gives back more than it receives, right? We can take this and bring this idea of cultivating ecosystems into our businesses, into our projects, into our lives, and give energy in the right areas and receive energy back, right? So social media is probably the best example. You put out one piece of content, you might get 2 or 3 people that say, hey, I love that. So you've received, if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're just putting it out there, you've then given energy in a way that's aligned with your vision, and you've received energy back, and this is why it's important not to always think about money and seeing value and time and life force as a real currency, right? And so you cultivate that, and that inspires you to then give again. Yeah. And you give back more the next time, and then you receive back more
again. Yeah.
And then
it just goes bigger.
Beautiful energetic loop of exchange, and it just continues to cycle. That's how we stop burnout. Yeah. That's how we create holistic success, by cultivating these ecosystems. We dive into that in the course, in how to actually cultivate those, how to actually, dive into like, where am I receiving energy? Because sometimes you might receive energy, you might put energy into your community and it comes back in a wealth space, or you might give something to someone, you might mentor a young kid and it never really comes back financially, but then they might talk to 3 or 4 people who then come and work with you. And it always, when you do things for the right reasons, it always works its way back around, And so how do we do things for the right reasons? Well, we make sure that we tap into a true vision and we understand what that is.
Go back to the vision.
We go back to the vision, man, So my clients get sick of me saying, like, tap into it. But at the end of the day, it's very, very simple, and sometimes simple is really
is boring.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone comes in wanting like bells and whistles, and I can give you bells and whistles if you want. And when we start talking quantum mechanics and masculine and feminine and all of those kind of things later on in the program, it's that's when we get into soul contracts and all of the really fun and sort of like expansive conversations. But all of that still ties back to vision,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of module 1, man, in a nutshell. It's a great module. We've actually just split that module, so we've separated module 1 from the full program itself. So what we'll do is, for anyone that is keen to learn out, we'll throw together a little link and a discount code for anyone that listens from this podcast. And then we can see who's come through from the podcast and say thanks for listening and those kind of things. We haven't done an affiliate program. He's wondering. Yeah, we'll just do that. And if people are interested, they can get, module 1 and see what it's all about. And we'll put the code, I guess, somewhere.
Sure, man. I'll put it in the description. So if anyone so the biggest takeaway that I got really is like vision and, energetics, right? And you do talk a lot about these 2 things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And for me, it all ties in. Like, everything comes back to those things, even your sales and your marketing and all that. And, we do a lot of the sales work in regards to different frameworks and processes, and especially in my business masterminds and one-to-one space, because at the end of the day, the world, I think a lot of conscious entrepreneurs and a lot of people that go down the spiritual or personal development space, they get lost in the 5D. They just sort of get focused in on
technicals.
Like they think that they're just going to like levitate off and just like gravitate into nothingness. And I mean, hopefully someone does that, and that's really cool, and that's their role here. But for most people, it's actually to help and provide, and I think we forget, and I've done it definitely in the past. I've gone too far in that way, and we forget that, one, the world that we live in at the moment runs off currency and money, and so you have to be able to create big enough things to be able to utilize that. And to shift the flow in what we perceive as like a good intention. But 2, like, if you're serious about helping people, like this is where people are. They're not floating off into the 5D. They're fucking struggling with what they're struggling with in their life. They're struggling with their sabotage, their fears, their self-doubt, their, just lack of awareness about how they're creating everything within their lives. And so if we're serious about actually helping people, then we have to come back in and align that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much spiritual, energetical work you do. It's this physical body that is the vessel for that. And so it's what transmutes that energy back out into reality. And if you don't work on this physical space either, then you cap yourself. And so that's why we talk about a holistic approach. It's like working in all of those areas if we hold the premise that we're all energy, to reduce the amount of restriction in our body to allow that energy to flow its purest, right, across those different spaces. So mind, body, spirit, because they all have different energetical pathways, right? You think about the mind, you've got the brain, the crown chakra, and consciousness. Yeah. So there's 3 pathways in itself. And so if we hold that premise of, or that idea that we spoke about earlier, that our energy flows to the things that hold the most power over us. So if we have a mindset problem, if we're in a fixed mindset or a negative mindset, straight away we kink the flow of that energy. And then same again, if we've got tightness in our chest, straight away we kink the flow of that energy. If we've got gut issues, straight away, all of those different things, we kink the flow of those energies. And that causes untold mayhem sometimes in the way in which we create, in the way in which that energy comes back out. So again, we roll through a lot of that stuff in the program as well, especially later on. But yeah, it's been cool. We just finished the first cohort through that, that part of it, which is really cool. Just beta tested all of the content and the program itself and had some really cool results. So that's been really exciting. It's been cool to work through my own resistances in those spaces as well, like all the things that come with creating something new, especially seeing as I worked backwards from like high ticket to mid ticket to now entry level, which is probably the opposite way of what most people do. But so that's,
but I think
challenges and
I think it's the best way. Now we're talking about business wise, but like that's also how I did mine. Like, and that happened because I saw that, like it's kind of like raising the awareness, like the consumer awareness, right? Because no one's really going to commit to the high ticket immediately. But when you give them like, you bring them up the ladder or take them down as well, kind of gives them the opportunity or what they actually need. Because maybe they don't need the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we do see that a fair bit in regards to like, you come do 1-to-1, but you just need to go and do this module. So here, you can just go and do that module and then
You're good.
tell people how good it is and it'll all work itself out, and especially now where I'm sort of getting more back into working with businesses and corporate space as well, and not so much individuals. It's like, well, how can I just come in and add value to your business? Because that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's not about money. It's about how much value you can add someone's life. And you think about, that's the beauty of what I do in the 1-to-1 space, I guess, in regards to my marketing background, my sales, like sales knowledge, all of those different things, like the coaching, the business, the structures. Like when you start to talk about the value that brings, not just from a financial point of view, but the holistic approach of like, okay, well, you're going to have a better relationship with your family. You're going to have a better relationship with your kids. You're going to have a better relationship with your current partner, whatever that looks like. You're going to be healthier. You can do this, this, and this. All of a sudden, that value is just through the roof, and connecting people to that why, connecting people to that vision, which is a big part of my sales process is like, well, what's the vision of what you want to create?
Yeah. It's always like that.
Of course it's possible. You've already been in it. You've just walked through that vision. You just told me about it. If you can see it, you can do it. And so then it's like, well, what's it worth to get to there?
Now you're just going to give the tools, as you mentioned earlier, right? It's just the tools, the community.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we all have that. All of us have the ability to go out and create great things in our life. We're all cut from that same cloth. We all have those tools. We just don't know the processes. We have like massive, like limiting beliefs that stop us from ever seeing that or seeing those possibilities. The more people we can help to do that, the greater the world's going to be. And that's one of my greatest motivators, is to create a lasting legacy for my boys, and their kids and their kids and their kids. And the way I do that is through impacting on people in whatever way I can. And so I don't really care if someone comes and works with me. Like if 100 people go and try watch this and then go and create a vision and go out and do something in the world, that's the reward.
Yeah, it's great.
Because
it goes back.
Man, it's not even about it coming back to me. It's about it coming back
to everyone
down the line. Like who knows? It's just about, again, ecosystem, cultivate those ecosystems.
Yeah, it's like the energy, like you mentioned earlier, right? Yeah. The energy you put out there.
And if you're not doing it for that reason, if you're just doing it to make a buck, then you're not doing it for the right reasons, and that's going to bite you in the ass eventually. And you're you'll get into that space of unfulfillment. You might create some really cool things, and hopefully, if that's you and you're just doing it for money at the moment, hopefully you get to the point where you have created enough and you can go, all right, cool, let go of that identity of who you are and go, okay, I need to create some more fulfillment. I need to create more holistic success. Otherwise, I'm going to burn out and I'm going to be that grumpy old bugger that nobody likes.
The guy who your manager said you should follow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're watching this.
It's interesting though what you mentioned, like, because like a lot of people, or even I, now I'm just gonna speak for myself. I don't want to say like a lot of people, but for myself, like I want to do things for my own, and like there's nothing in nature that operates in a vacuum, and anything that operates in a vacuum dies by itself. So it's like if you don't do it for others, as you mentioned, as you worded it, if you don't do it in terms of like you put energy out there, there's no energy that's going to come back. And if you just like try to get it all, you're just going to end up dying.
Yeah, man. So, or you'll get the wrong energy back, right? And people will be able to resonate with this when it comes to like overgiving or the people pleaser energy. Is that you do it and you don't get the right
for themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't come back, right? And the people pleaser is usually like doing it to like feel love and acceptance and all those kind of things, and they do it, but it's like, when we create from a place of fear, that's another big thing in creative development. When we create from that place of fear, we just recreate more of the same, right? It filters the energy, and that then brings back the energy that we don't want, and then we get into our shit, and then we get in the cycle, but then that's our identity, right? And so it becomes really, really hard to change because, again, we're not taught how to do rite of passage. We're not taught how to go through this death and rebirth cycle, and we have, as a species, we have this massive aversion to death, right? But in order to grow, you have to let that version of you die, constantly going through death and rebirth and rite of passage. And if we're not familiar with that, like every single second of every single day, your cells die, like your skin falls off, you're literally like repairing and regenerating as we're sitting here talking, and so that's one of the beauties of going down this holistic path and the energetics and having these beliefs around energy is that it completely shifts your perspective on death. And that's a very, very liberating thing. Like to be able to do some of the cool things we do in regards to energy channeling and speaking to spirits and speaking with other energy and all those kind of things. It's a very, very liberating thing. And even if those things are just different parts of our consciousness showing themselves to us, to be able to present that information and make ourselves feel okay now in the present, and that's a fucking beautiful thing in itself. To be able to heal, to be able to let go, and to be able to, when my grandfather died, I can swear that I hear his voice on the wind. I can swear I see his, I talk to him, and even if that's just my consciousness allowing me to feel a little bit better, then bloody sweet. How can we utilize that to our advantage? How can we have a really cool perspective on life that allows us to navigate all the shit that gets thrown at us all the time? And so, again, it's just creating different tools, finding what works for us. And that's one of the reasons why I like to sort of go in a lot of different directions with my content and the way that I approach things, because everyone resonates with something differently. And so if I pigeonhole myself in regards to, well, this is how you do it and this is the only thing, then I limit the amount of people that I can have an impact on, right? And so some people really resonate with the energetic stuff. Some people really resonate with the soul contract stuff. Some people really resonate with the nature stuff. And so being able to go through those different places and find what resonates with them gives us then a pathway to go down of like, okay, well, cool. This is why you resonate with this. Let's actually have a look into your past to see if there's anything like traumatic that's like linking to that way in which you resonate so that we can clear that. But also, if that's just how you're wired and how you're conditioned, let's not fight it and reject it. Let's embrace it and cultivate more of it, because that's just how you're wired to be supported. So let's support you in that way. I've got a client at the moment who's like very wealthy, but calls herself a trust hippie, which is fucking awesome. Just like parents did really, really well, burnt out, but did really, really well and left them a lot. And so she's in this space of wanting to create some big things. We've been working together for like a year and a half now. She's doing some incredible things, really, really exciting things in the world. like massive international things now, and it's really exciting. But for her, it was really around like she had to let go of this wanting to reject the way she was brought up because she had trauma around it, and trying to reject, like, because they were wealthy. She had all the coaches, she had all of the things, she had all of the support networks, and so it's like, well, you can either spend the next 7 years trying to rework all of that, heal your inner child wounds, and reject it all, and then like move on and create something different, or we can embrace it, create a functional relationship with it, and understand that you thrive with support systems. So what are the support systems you need? A PT, a nutrition coach, a therapist, like what's that look like? And put those things in place. And obviously she's in a great position financially to be able to do all of that. But it's also great awareness for anyone out there who's like, don't reject a part of yourself. It's the same with the conversation about the ego and shadow and those kind of things. They're a part of us, man. And so if we reject them out of fear, then we'll just create more of the same, and it's a big one in the masculinity space.
It manifests itself in different ways.
Exactly, man. And it's a really big one in the like gym bros, especially on the Twitter space, the masculinity stuff. When we focus so much on the external, so i.e. the gym, or the physical or the exterior, most of the time in my experience dealing with that sort of stuff, it's because there's a fear internally. We're trying to create this image of what other people would expect for us. And so we focus so much on the exterior from a place of fear, from not seeming weak or whatever it might be, that what we actually do is we create a weakness internally. And so by doing that and focusing so much on being this exterior, strong wall, like just, nothing's going to bother me, we create a weakness. And that's a great example of what happens when we create from a place of fear. And so that's why, again, here it is again, vision. True for you to create is so important, because then you can be comfortable, and that vision isn't just like what you want to create from a project point of view. It's the vision of who you are as a man or woman. Like, what are your values? What are your standards? How does that person act? What's the vision of how you act when you're in that space? What's the behaviors like? What's your routines? All of those things can be born from that. And so when you start to talk about it like that and bring the values and your standards and all of those things in, all of a sudden your life starts to really shift. And it's incredible the results that people can get by simple energetic tweaks.
Yeah. It's my theory there. Like right now I'm thinking, because when you establish a vision, you operate in a function of like want. And so, because when you operate in fear, it's like you feel like you're going to lose something, right? But when you operate in a want, it's like you don't have anything to lose. And so you actually operate in, there you go, in a function of abundance. So it's like you do it because you want it. You're just doing it because you're abundant. You already have everything you want. You're just doing it because you want it. Rather than fear, it's like, oh my God, like I need that, or I'm going to lose something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You think about this from a like saving point of view, like one of the best reframes in regards to scarcity and lack for a lot of my clients has been this notion that realistically, people who are in a fear mindset or a scarcity mindset, or poor people, save. They save for a rainy day. They save for the worst possible outcome. So they'll go, I need like 5,000 here. I need 10,000, or I need 50,000 to feel safe. And it's just, and 50,000 that's sitting there, you could be turning that into 5 million, and then you don't need to fucking worry about the rainy day. And that's the mindset you got to have. How can I create abundance with my wealth? How can I get my wealth ecosystem cultivating? How can I be putting in and receiving passive income? All of those different things. How can I utilize my unique genius in a number of different ways? No different for you, man. It's like, well, how can I monetize my skills in regards to my writing and the skills that I have in that space, and not just from a point of view of my time? How can I create myriads of different offerings that I can have passive income streams from? And so, yeah, you're spot on that abundance piece. It's so important, and hopefully more people start to shift in that direction,
Yeah, it's a goal, man. It's our impact. It's the impact of this podcast, bro.
Yeah, it's cool. And then, I think For me, that's like the highest level of consciousness for me, is you get to a point where you realize that, one, in the grand scheme of all time and space, your impact on whatever, on time and space or on people, is very, very minimal, and it's just a blip in the ocean when it comes to the expanses of the universe. But you think it's still the right thing to do and you love what you're doing, and so you go out and do it, and you still do it anyway. And for me, that's like, I think, the level that people need to get to. And then that's when the energy starts to shift, is like, I'm doing it because I love it. I don't care if no one rocks up to an event. I'm doing it because I love it. I'm just going to, if no one rocks up, I'm just going to do it for me. And I think that's where that genuine piece, that authenticity piece comes from. It's a beautifully liberating place to get to. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about it in our previous podcast as well. Like you said that a lot, where you did it because you love it. You're no more anxiety, no more stress. Just you want it.
Well, and those things still come up, right? I still feel them. They still arise, but they're just like, they're not.
As you said, like tension.
Yeah,
it's not really stress. It's like tension. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful opportunity. I like enjoy it now because it's like, cool. There's some
challenge.
There's a growth. And because that's the first thing for me. So if I'm feeling comfortable, I'm like, okay, time to change something up.
Right.
Like, time to go to the next level. And that's where for me, coaches aren't for the good times. Coaches coaches are for the good times. Sorry, they're not for the bad times, really. Like, sure, they're there to help you get out of funks. They're there to hold you accountable. But the real goal of coaches is that when it's going good, they hold you accountable to the systems, to the processes, to the tools, so you don't get complacent. Because if the leader gets complacent, then the whole team gets complacent, and then that's that's 6 months to 12 months of rework that you've got to do in regards to like limiting beliefs, negative habits, and all those kind of things. So it's it's really cool, man. I love what you're doing here. Like, it's really cool to see, and you're getting some really cool guests on, which is fucking awesome.
Thanks, man. So I like to ask my guests one final question. If I was going to ask one question, or if there's one question that I didn't ask that you wish I asked, what would it have been, and how would you answer it?
That's a great question. We should ask that. Maybe like, what do you want to see more of in the world? And how I would answer that is just more people living in their truth and loving what they do, not living in a place of fear, and I'd love to see more people being willing to give value and give information so that more people can just do what they love to do. I feel like there's still this mentality of scarcity in regards to a lot of things that people do, and they hide it behind paywalls, they hide it behind closed doors, and sure, you've got to make a living, you've got to do all those sort of things, and I understand that, and I do the same thing, but I'm also very, very, I like to just give value, and I like to go in depth, and I like to just fucking just gave shit away on a whiteboard, I think the more we can do that, the more people will have a high level of awareness, and that's going to create a better world, not just for me and my family, but for everyone's families. And that's a world that I want to live in. So
that's beautiful, man. So now, is there anything that you'd like to announce? Anything you're launching in the future? What can we see more about you, and where can people find you?
I mean, if anything, the stuff that I've been talking about resonates with anyone, you're always free to DM me. If you ever have any questions, same again, like, I'm open book. So if you have a problem in your life and you would like some advice and you'd like some, like, a tool or a process, just reach out. Like, message me on whether it's like any of the social media channels, just reach out. We're doing a YouTube channel now, so that's cool. We're sort of doing some like longer, more in-depth content in that. Obviously the program's there. We'll chuck that code down below. We're just about to start and branch off 2 new group coaching spaces, one which will be following the program in depth and going deeper into those concepts. The other will be a business, leadership, sales, marketing mastermind, really helping conscious entrepreneurs go to the next level, which will be a lot of the work that I do in the one-to-one space, just brought back into a group setting, which will be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that. Hydration Organics, if you guys are looking for cacao, come over our way. We're doing a lot of cool things over there. If you're struggling with your coffee addiction, I know black coffee is a massive thing, especially for the X community. It is not the savior. It's doing you long-term damage. Do not overconsume it. Come and drink some cacao. It is way better for you. So yeah, that's over there. We're doing some cool things in the non-for-profit space for men's work. So yeah, if you're in the men's health space and you want to come over and have a look at what we're doing, especially in the Perth or Western Australia areas, come and hang out. We're doing activations. We're doing things all over the state, which is really cool. And I think that's obviously the Genius Portal. If you want to learn intuitive development, come over and see us at the Genius Portal. We got plenty going on there. Obviously, it sounds like we've got plenty going on. There's something for everyone. And if you ever have any questions, always feel free to reach out.
That's awesome, man. So Luke Deighton in all platforms. I think you also have a newsletter. So that's Luke Anthony Deighton. That card.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main link in all of my profiles for social media now. So come on there. I'm talking this sort of stuff Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Probably going to go more soon. Do a couple of extra videos a week and just, again, give good energy out, give people information and let them do what they want to do with it. And hopefully go out and create some cool things with it, So yeah, thanks for the reminder on the newsletter. I think that's it, man. I think, to be honest, that's everything that we're doing at the moment. We've got plenty of big visions, plenty of big stuff coming. So yeah, watch this space for even more stuff, I guess.
Super excited, man. So yeah, Luke Deighton, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around, bro.
Big love, guys. Thanks for having me on again.